Hello everyone, I'm going to be getting into 2 new cores that I'm going to release, one of which is done, the other I still have to finalize. Right now I'm going to load into RetroArch from the main user interface. Again, you can do this by going into the extras folder in my core set, the Hashi folder, and add Clover SNES as a game, and you'll be able to do this. Right now I'm going to go to load core, and I'm going to load this nifty Croco DS, which is actually a port of the great emulator from the Nintendo DS, and it runs CPC Amstrad games. So I'm going to load that, and I'm going to use the dummy folder method right now. And then, of course, if you would like to load these from the main user interface, you could simply do bin/CrocoDS. But right now, I'm doing the dummy folder. And one thing that was incredibly awesome about these home computers, such as the CPC Amstrad, Commodore 64, and the ZX Spectrum, was the fact that many of these home computers had a ton of licensed games that you would never otherwise see on systems such as the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sega Master System. So I'm going to load Friday the 13th from 1986 by Domark. Load it with a Croco DS core. And I got a little bit of a surprise the first time I played this, just like I did the first time I played the Friday the 13th on NES, where I jumped when Jason was in a cabin. The very nice, calm, serene noise of scratching nails on a chalkboard there. And I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit there. But this actually is a pretty fun game, and it has a little bit of resemblance to the original Nintendo version. And even though the Nintendo version had issues because of people complaining about the LGN logo, especially angry video game nerds such, it actually was a genius bit of programming because of the fact that every time you started a game, it was always different. It was basically an algorithm that had the counselors and Jason and all the items and such in a different place every time. You could beat the game in 2 minutes, you could beat it in an hour. It was never the same game twice. But one thing to note about running these PC cores, and this is something that I pushed for last year, and if FR500 did an awesome job of getting this implemented into RetroArch, you're able to map the keyboard to your controller for multiple cores such as Blue MSX, Atari 800, as well as DOSBox, and this core right here, Croco DS. So what you're going to do is go into Quick Menu, Controls, and for user 1 device type, you're actually going to change it to Retro Keyboard. But before I do that, I'm going to go down and look. I don't have the ability to do much. I can move up, down, left, right, and start the game. I'm missing all the other keyboard functions. But if I go up to here and change this to Retro Keyboard, then I back out, then I come right back into Controls. I have the ability to map the entire keyboard to the controller. Pretty awesome. So right here it says button Z on the keyboard is set to B button on the controller, but I have to manually configure it to the controller. So I'll do that real quick. I'm just going to do enough just to get the game going. Z, we'll make this A here. Let's try this out for a moment here. See if I can find a weapon and use it with the buttons programmed on here now. You see you have the counselors there, 10 counselors that you have to try to save from being killed by Jason. I would have loved to see a game like this show up on the Atari 2600 instead of the E.T. and Indiana Jones that we got, even though I did enjoy those games despite the bad hoopla on them both. Gotta love this terrible, terrible chiptune music. Just hoping I can find a weapon here real fast. Usually you'll find a weapon sitting out in the open field or sometimes inside buildings. Playing some classical music there, I hear. There's a weapon. Now I can actually pick up the weapon and throw it, so the controls are working. Now I'm going to load another game here. Load content, start directory, dummy, CPC. As far as licensed games, we also have Cobra from 1987 by Ocean Software. Ocean actually made a lot of great games for the CPC Amstrad, etc., but the ones that got ported to NES were not quite as good. We're talking about Blues Brothers again. So I'm going to load Cobra from 1987, same core. And I love how the enemies explode, just like in the last battle game for Sega Genesis. And if you've ever played Last Battle on Sega Genesis, the American version, the enemies just kicked off the screen, but if you play the import version, the enemies splattered in blood, just like in this game here. Is it me, or does it feel like there's a Batman theme playing in the background here? And I have like a 2-inch punch here. Look at this, I can punch 2 inches at a time. Interesting game here. But anyways, we're going to load the other core that I'm working on right now. And this is actually the Amiga core. Then I'm going to load content here. And this is a little bit tricky here. I'm going to explain this briefly here. I'm going to dummy folder, Amiga folder. And say I try to load up Prince of Persia, for instance, here. What's going to happen is I'm going to get the interface for the Amiga core, but I am unable to load the game. And there's a specific reason why I cannot yet load the game. Right here, I have the ability to configure the BIOS for it and all that good stuff. So I can configure the BIOS by picking the kick image. I can configure the sound, the video, the hard disk. I could choose the floppy disk. I could browse and add them. The problem is this is not how you're going to load the game. When I finally get this done, if it's able to run, what's going to happen is I'm going to have to set up a configuration file as a template. And what you're going to do is basically copy the name of the game into the template. And then you're going to load the game, the configuration file, as your game. And instead of loading this menu right here, it's going to go directly to the game. But one of the games that is actually going to work on the core, if it works properly, would be the great Shadow of the Beast. And if you play Shadow of the Beast on PlayStation 4, the original Amiga Shadow of the Beast comes with it as an added bonus. But right now, what we're going to do, since we cannot currently run the Amiga core just yet, but cross your fingers, guys and gals, hopefully we'll have it going soon. I'm going to quit RetroArch here. I'm going to load the closest approximation of Shadow of the Beast for Amiga. And I'm going to load it through the PCE CD, which is TurboGrafx CD core. It's really an awesome game. It's been on many systems from Sega Genesis to Super Nintendo to TurboGrafx CD and, of course, the Amiga. And other than the Amiga, this is the best version you could possibly run of it. And I love the TurboGrafx CD version. It is just simply awesome and well worth your time. And I do love the PS4 version, of course, too. But for right now, while we're trying to finish up the Amiga core, try the TurboGrafx CD version of Shadow of the Beast. With a great soundtrack. Has a little bit of a Stan Bush kickboxer blood sport feel to it here. Great music for this, truly epic. And TurboGrafx CD had an exceptional color palette, no different than the TurboGrafx 16 had as well. I mean, Sega Master System, TurboGrafx CD, TurboGrafx 16, they had way better color palettes than the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo Entertainment System had. Of course, I can't go past that point. And this game is quite a bit of trial and error, where you'll pretty much have a little bit of a Dragon's Lair element to it, where you'll go into a nook or cranny, have a dead end, or die. I mean, you just have to explore and truly see the scope of this game. It is awesome, and they made a sequel for it on Genesis as well, and on Super Nintendo. But let's hear some more of that awesome Stan Bush-inspired music here. It'd help if I stay on the ground here. Really loving this music here. They truly did a great job with this game. I mean, it really feels pretty close to the Amiga version. And I love this original soundtrack for it. This truly is something you would definitely see in like a late 1980s, early 1990s martial arts movie. I feel like I'm watching the end credits of Bloodsport right now. But anyways, definitely check this out and cross your fingers that the Amiga Core will be going soon, and there'll be a core set update later today. And try out Shadow of the Beast for TurboGrafx CD in the meantime.